go all over this country, we're listening to young people. And what we are hearing from young people is, how does it happen that I end up $50,000, $100,000 in debt for the crime of trying to get a higher education? Again, think outside of the box. Take a deep breath and say, okay, everybody here knows that learning and education is an inherent part of who we are as human beings. Second of all, that if we're going to compete effectively in the global economy, we need the best educated workforce that we can develop. Why in God's name should millions of people be punished having to pay off student debt decade after decade? For what crime did they commit? For trying to get a decent education. Makes no sense to me. And this campaign is listening to women. And what women are saying is, how does it happen that I'm sitting in an office someplace and I am making, on average, 79 cents on the dollar compared to the guy who's sitting next to me? That makes, again, no sense. That makes no economic sense. All that is old-fashioned sexism. And that is why today we are going to go forward and fight for pay equity for women workers. And by the way, that gap of 79 cents to the dollar, that's the national gap. For African American women, that gap is actually much, much wider than that. We are listening in this campaign to young couples. And what the young couples are telling us is that it is very, very hard for them to obtain quality, affordable childcare. Now, that's again another issue we don't talk about as a nation, but I want all of you to know what I know you already know, is that every psychologist who studies the issue tells us that the most important years of a human being's development, intellectual and emotional, is 0 through 4. And yet, you got hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of little children sitting home right now watching dumb television shows because they're not in quality child care centers. So what we need to do is to understand that we are going to make sure that little kids, the future of this country, have the best first 4 years of their life that we can provide to them. And this campaign is listening to our brothers and sisters in the African American community. And they are tired, as all of us are tired, of seeing videos on television of unarmed African Americans being killed. I'm the former mayor of Burlington, Vermont, and I've worked with police officers for many, many years. The vast majority of police officers are hardworking and honest and are trying to do a very, very difficult job. But like any other public official, when a police officer breaks the law, that officer must be held accountable. We have got to deal with a national tragedy, which if we do not change the system, a black male baby born today stands a 1 in 4 chance of ending up in jail. That is a tragedy And together, we are going to change that. This campaign is listening to our Latino brothers and sisters. And what they are telling me is they are tired of living in the shadows and in fear. They want a comprehensive immigration reform legislation to pass the Congress with a path toward citizenship. Our immigration policy must be to unite families, not divide families. And if the Congress does not do its job, I will use the executive powers of the presidency to do all that I can. Just the other day, I was up in Hibbing, and I met, among other things, among other people, with leaders in the Native American community. And I don't have to explain to anybody here of the very horrific history of the relationship between the United States government and the Native American people in this country. They have been lied to, they have been cheated, they have been exploited in a shameful, shameful way. And when I was up in Hibbing, and it's not different in other parts of the country, the Native American leaders talked to me about half of the kids not graduating high school, very, very high levels of substance abuse and alcoholism, kids committing suicide, high rates of unemployment. We can. You know, we owe Native Americans so much. We have learned so much from them in so many ways, including respect for the environment. We cannot continue current policies which are so devastating to the Native American community. That will change under Sanders' administration. Tomorrow is Super Tuesday, and the people are entitled to know the differences, somewhat profound differences that exist between Secretary Clinton and myself, and I just want to rattle off a few of them. Number one, I made a decision when we began this campaign that I would not have a super PAC. I do not represent the interests of Wall Street, of corporate America, of the drug companies, of the fossil fuel industry, and of other powerful special interests. I don't want their money. And what we have done in an incredible, unprecedented way is to reach out to working families in this country and say, look, if you want real change in this country, we need your help. Kick in what you can. We have received in the last 10 months over 4 million individual campaign contributions. Unprecedented. Nobody, no candidate in American history at this point in a campaign has done that. And do you know what the average contribution is? I love that. That is revolutionary, because what that shows is you can run a campaign, to paraphrase Lincoln at Gettysburg, of the people, by the people, and for the people. Secretary Clinton has chosen to go another route. She has chosen in her super PAC, she has several super PACs. One of them reported their filings a couple of weeks ago, $15 million from Wall Street. She has received substantial sums of money from the drug companies and from the fossil fuel industry. Now, I may be wrong, but I think that if you are serious about bringing real change to this country, a candidate heavily financed by Wall Street, the drug companies, and the fossil fuel industry is not going to be that candidate. Everybody here knows foreign policy an enormously important part of what a president does. The most important foreign policy issue this country has dealt with in the last 20 years is Iraq. I listened very carefully, trust me, very carefully, to what President Bush and Vice President Cheney and all of these guys were saying about how we had to go into Iraq. I concluded that they were not telling the truth. Not only did I vote against the war, I helped lead the opposition to the war. Then Senator Clinton took a different path. She voted for the war. And she recently, in a debate, some of you may have heard this, kind of looked to Henry Kissinger as one of her mentors. In my view, I will not look to Henry Kissinger for guidance. In fact, Henry Kissinger was one of the most destructive secretaries of state in the modern history of this country.
There you go. He sold out Vietnam. He could have never been there
Third
in the first place, but
major area, among many others, where Secretary Clinton and I have had our strong disagreements. The media doesn't talk about trade very much. It's not a sexy issue. But all of you know that it is an enormously important issue. And you know that trade agreements like NAFTA and CAFTA and permanent normal trade relations with China have resulted in the loss of millions of decent paying jobs in this country and a race to the bottom. I, from day one, helped lead the opposition to NAFTA, to permanent normal trade relations with China. I do not want corporations to shut down in America and move abroad and exploit poor people around the world. I believe in fair trade policies, not unfettered free trade policies. Secretary Clinton, over the years, strongly supported NAFTA and permanent normal trade relations with China. History will record that on that issue, I was right, she was wrong. And you know what? They deserve it. This campaign is going to win because the American people, whether they're conservative or progressive, understand that the American economy is not about the top 1/10 of 1%. Imagine this, 1/10 of 1% now owning almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. This country is not about the wealthiest 20 people owning more wealth than the bottom half of America, 150 million Americans. This country is not about, and Keith Ellison and I have worked on this, giving huge tax breaks, opposing huge tax breaks for billionaires, while Republicans want to cut Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and federal aid to education. We are going to change national priorities. We are going to invest in those people who need the help, and we're going to demand that the wealthiest people and largest corporations start paying their fair share of taxes. This campaign understands that real unemployment is close to 10%. And that when we have an infrastructure, and I was in Flint, Michigan the other day, and I will not even bother to tell you what I heard because it was so painful, so beyond belief that this could happen in America in the year 2016. But it's not just Flint, Michigan, it's communities all over America, problems with water and wastewater, bridges, roads, airports, rail, you name it. We can create 13 million jobs rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure. That is exactly what I intend to do.